Welcome back to True North. Hope you guys are having a fantastic day today. Now, in this video, I want to discuss something that is a massive topic. It's a very ominous thing to talk about. It's overarching of many people's worldviews, and it's something that's probably uncomfortable for some people to hear, but it's just true. And that is the fact that everyone believes in God. And when I say that, first of all, do I literally mean that every person chooses to put their faith in God every single day and act as if God exists consciously? No. But what I mean by that is that most people, almost everybody in this world, lives their life in a way that indicates that they depend on God's existence, right? And whether this is a conscious choice or an unconscious, subconscious decision, many people borrow from the Christian worldview in the Bible just in order to live their daily lives. And I'm going to give you guys a few examples of how this is the case. And I hope by the end of the video that you guys will have a better understanding of your own worldview and your own view of reality in the universe, and really ask yourself some hard questions like, do I really know why I believe what I believe? So if you guys are interested in hearing about some of those points, make sure you stay tuned. But if you're not already subscribed to True North, make sure you subscribe. My friend Peter and I love uploading faith-based content to lead you and everybody else to a more strong, connected relationship with Christ. Now, without further ado, the first thing that I want to talk about as far as how people live their lives as if they believe in God is the appeal to morality. Okay? Now, morality is a massive, very complicated, thorough subject that needs to be broken down properly, and I'm sure I will go into that in many more videos in the future. But to put it briefly, morality is simply not possible without a belief in God. And this is something that I've talked about in the past. People have debated me on this in the past. People disagree. They have their own views of morality. But after examining many different arguments, and I have much more examining to do myself, but I've come to a very firm understanding that morality is simply useless without God. Not only does it not make sense, but it's useless. Now, the first point about why it does not make sense. A very fundamental belief in this world that most human beings hold, whether they acknowledge why they hold that view or not, is that human beings are inherently valuable. Okay? And I want to ask you guys this question right now, is why is a human being valuable? It's something you probably have never thought of, or maybe ask yourself, or really put the time to think about, because it's so basic, it's just common sense. But why is it? When you really think about why is a human being valuable? And it is because we are made in the image of God. We are made in the image and likeness of God. And when that is the case, we have inherent value as human beings. When you look at your fellow human being, that person has value. You care for them to a certain extent. You would not willingly let that person die if you were able to save them. All these things because we view human beings as valuable. Now, why is that important? Because without God, without that basic understanding that human beings are valuable and why they're valuable, you cannot make sense of that idea. You cannot say, really, there's not many thorough arguments for why it matters ultimately, human beings' worth and value, outside of that explanation and the reasoning that we are made in the image and likeness of God. Outside of that, if you look at a more naturalistic, materialist worldview, we are simply collections of atoms, collections of flesh that are existing and living in this universe with no order or no meaning. There's no purpose. There's no God that designed us. We're not made in the image of a God. So therefore, why would we be worth something? But the fact is, people conduct their lives in a manner that indicates that they believe that all human beings are valuable. And without thoroughly asking yourself and examining, why do I hold this belief, you're never going to truly understand why you hold the positions you do. And you really probably have a harder time of opening your eyes to the reality that God exists and that he is very real. Now, the second thing I wanted to discuss regarding morality is that it ultimately does not matter. Even if somehow on the first point you're able to explain to me or justify with a very thorough argument based in fact and evidence and all these things, reason. If you're somehow able to argue and justify a position that morality is explainable without God's existence, then you need to also explain to me, which is my second point, why morality even matters in the first place. For example, the Christian worldview, the Bible teaches that God is all-powerful, omnipotent. The Bible teaches that God is all-powerful. He is the single creator behind the entire universe. He's the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. He's perfectly just, perfectly loving, gracious. But this God that we believe in the Christian worldview has an ultimate accountability. when it comes to sin and wrongdoing, which, in my opinion, creates an unavoidable truth that morality matters so greatly because there is an ultimate accountability that comes after this life, whether we pay for it in this life or not. Simply put, morality just would not matter if there were no accountability that was coming down the line at some point. And another example and argument for this stance is the fact that we all have a conscience that is given to us by God. We all have that feeling inside of us that when we commit something wrong, especially the more wrong that it is, the worse that we feel inside. That is basically the compass, the moral compass that God has given all of us inside of us. That given can be seared, it can be destroyed and basically disabled by unrepentant continual sin. But this conscience that God gives us indicates to us naturally what is right and what is wrong, and there is scriptural evidence behind the conscience. But again, this would furthermore indicate that morality ultimately matters. Number one, it's explainable with God, but it ultimately matters in the afterlife, which is the idea and the reality that we all will pay one day, no matter what happened on earth, whether we got away with it or not. We will pay for the sins that we committed on this earth. Okay, now that is the first reason that you should believe God exists, and then we all act as if God exists. The second reason I want to dive into, this is getting into the idea of presuppositional apologetics, something I've been researching and enjoying really diving into recently, but basically the idea that you cannot even begin to reason really with anything outside of a belief in God. And there's different areas of that. You have laws of logic, laws of nature, laws of mathematics, all these unchanging immaterial realizations and things that exist in our universe, are observable by human beings, but they cannot be explained outside of a perfect, all-powerful creator. Okay, so just briefly, let's talk about laws of logic. We all know laws of logic exist. They are not things that human beings created. Okay? We didn't create these things. They exist whether we want to believe in them or not. We know that 2 + 2 is always 4, whether we believe it will be or not. If you take 2 baseballs and pair them with 2 other baseballs, you're going to have 4 baseballs every time. It's not going to be 5. It's not going to be 6. It's not going to be 2. It's going to be 4 every time. This is something human beings observe. Okay, we did not create the laws of logic. If I start speaking gibberish to the camera right now, it wouldn't make any sense to you, and that's perfectly normal, and that's how it should be seen, is because we have the law of non-contradiction, and we have laws of logic that matter. Like, for example, if I'm speaking to you in this camera right now and you're watching my YouTube video and I tell you all these reasons that God exists, but then I say the next sentence, well, he actually doesn't exist, and this is why he doesn't exist, it wouldn't make any sense. And that is the law of non-contradiction that we all know and observe and require to even have a conversation with another person, but we don't ask ourselves, why do we have these positions? These are 2 very simple concepts that point us to the reality that God does exist. And we all innately know this. My friend Peter and I have an audio podcast, True North Talk. Go subscribe now if you're not already. It's a great show. But recently we were discussing the idea that all have knowledge of God. When we're witnessing to people, some people think, well, I just can't bring myself to believe. It's because they suppress the truth. Does this mean they are knowingly suppressing the truth? Not necessarily. And that's why, when somebody says, well, I'm not hiding the fact that I don't believe in God. I just literally cannot feel like I believe. That's possible, but it's because of the suppression of truth. It's because of deception that has been accepted as truth. Years and years of conditioning, denial, sometimes anger and resentment toward God. I mean, there are various reasons why somebody may not believe in God, but ultimately we all have knowledge as human beings that God exists. He has made it plain to them, the Bible says. God has made it plain to them so that all are without excuse. Even looking around at creation tells us that God is real and he exists. Okay, and the simple analogy that I've used before, but it's very true and very accurate and I think easily understandable, is if you look at a house, something I took from Ray Comfort, shout out Ray Comfort, Living Waters. But if you look at a house, you know it has a builder. Nobody's going to roll up on the side of a street, see a house and say, well, how did that house get there? It just doesn't make sense. Did it fall from the sky? No, the house was built. In the same sense, in the same way, when human beings look at creation, we understand there is a creator. It's just impossible that there's not. Not even going into all the other explanations and reasons for this fact. That is a simple fact that is undeniable, that because there's a creation, there is a creator. And it's just something you have to think about. So again, a brief video on the channel. I don't want to go too long. I just want to give you guys some brief reasons that you should consider. Maybe ask yourself these questions about your own worldview. Ask yourself, why does morality matter? And how can I explain morality outside the existence of God? It's just simply not possible. And then, briefly touching on some of those presuppositional ideas about laws of logic and nature and reality, ask yourself, where do these laws come from? Where do the laws of logic come from? Because we know they exist. It's because of a universal lawmaker. My opinion, I think it's truth. And I think that you guys watching this video will realize that if you sincerely ask the questions and look deep within yourself to find the answers, and really look in the Word of God ultimately to find the answers. But with that being said, this is all I'm going to go into for this video, keeping it brief. Want to get something up on the channel. So if you guys did enjoy the video, took something from it, or if this made you think critically, make sure you drop a like, subscribe here to True North for more faith-based media from my friend Peter and I. With that being said, I will see everybody next video.